Lawrence Bull, and I'm talking to Laura Legere, who has many, many hats, one of which is very long-term use of essential oils, uh, initially through massage, and she has probably one of the most enthusiastic uh, approaches to Young Living Essential Oils, which is the company she recommends. Could you tell us something, Laura, about how you first became aware that scent was interesting and beautiful for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I started my massage practice back in '93. Uh, Basically, I was a high voltage cable splicer and I worked all this overtime. So I started getting massages because I was working all this overtime. My body really needed it. And so once I started getting massages, I just kind of went, wow, I'd rather do this for a living than the other stuff. So I ended up just moving into being a massage therapist for people. And somebody initially had introduced me to the oils, and she was making bath salts and perfumes and different things like that. And I was curious about them, but I thought they smelled better than perfume and stuff like that. But I wasn't sure if they were supposed to do anything per se, and I didn't really know what essential oils were. I really didn't understand at that point that they're the lifeblood of the plant. They're the plant extract. I didn't know that. So I didn't notice that anything was really happening particular with any of the stuff that she was using other than it smelled better than, perfume. And so I did start using them a little bit in my massage practice, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and there wasn't much information about it. And I asked my friend, I said, well, because I noticed when she would get different oils, she was getting them from different companies and this and that. And I said, well, don't you just have one source that you can trust? And she just looked at me and said, no. So then I went to a initiation. This Tibetan Lama was initiating, and she's a woman, was initiating all these ministers, and she had this frankincense, and the room was full of this amazing frankincense, and I was incredibly euphoric, and I had never had that kind of experience with any of the other stuff I smelled. And I asked her, I said, where did you get that? And she said, China. And I said, where can I get it? And she just shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. So I'm like, okay. So so I thought, well, I know the massage store has essential oils and they have frankincense. So I didn't smell it or anything. I just had this assumption all frankincense was frankincense. So I bought a bottle and it was $20, which tells you right there it's not really the real thing. It's expensive to extract the oil out of the frankincense resin from the tree. The frankincense resin comes out on the tree, and they have to get oil out of that resin. So it's not $20 a bottle, the real stuff. Anyway, but I got home with it and I smelled it, and it stunk. It didn't smell. It was awful. Wasn't what I was experiencing at this initiation. So I decided that I didn't know what I was doing, that these things were crap, and I poured all my oils out. And so then my girlfriend that has influenced a lot of my healing work, and she's a massage therapist, she came to visit me. And she brought some oils, and she said, oh, I'm going to show you these oils. And I'm like, right, who cares? And so she gets me down on the living room floor, and she gives me just an oil treatment, and I had that euphoric feeling again, which is raising your frequency, because they've measured different oils, Young Living oils frequencies, and they raise pretty high. Like rose oil I'll start out with... they've measured, the human body, and the average health of the human body measures the frequency is hertz, are between 68 to 78 hertz, a healthy body. And then once you start, getting sick, it starts to go down. And coffee, just holding a cup of coffee will make your frequency go down, even if you don't drink it. And it takes 3 days by staying away from it for your frequency to be raised back up to what it normally would be. But the oil, if you smelled an oil right after doing coffee, it comes up within a couple of minutes. But anyway, so I think cancer is like down to 35, and a death is like 25, something like that. And the oils start at 52 hertz and go all the way up to 320 hertz, and 320 hertz is rose oil. So they really raise your frequency. And I know in the very beginning, I know that's what I felt, that euphoric feeling of my frequency being raised. And so then I started experimenting with her oils on myself. And so, for instance, she and I would stay up really late and get up early to meditate and chant. And there were times when I felt a little bit hungover just from not sleeping very much, and I would smell this one oil she had called Clarity, and it would just totally take that whole, brain fog away. And I was, so I noticed those things. And then when I was getting my first order of Young Living oils, I had a roommate that I was struggling with. I was trying to do her a favor, but she had some real problems. And anyway, we were having an argument. And at the time we were having an argument, my oils had arrived at the door. So while we're arguing, I get my oils out. I've got a new diffuser in the thing, and there's peace and calming in the package. So while we're arguing, I'm putting all this together, and I put the peace and calming in the diffuser. And as soon as I put that in the room, we both looked at each other and couldn't even remember what the heck we were arguing about. It's like, really? What? So I just noticed these things that were happening like right away. And so the actual essential oil is the lifeblood of the plant, and it takes up to an entire plant or more to make 1 drop of oil.
Ooh. So,
that's how concentrated it is. So the way that they're distilled with the Young Living farms, now not, a lot of other places might let the plant dry out too much before they distill it, or they distill it, for 15 minutes, and they basically burn, because they have to do that at a higher temperature, they burn a lot of the chemical compounds that are beneficial out of the oil. So what Young Living does is because I've actually gone to the farms and cut the lavender and distilled it. And so I got to watch the process for lavender. So what he does is he makes sure that, they're harvested at the peak of the season. And you cut it, and you lay the plants in front of the distillers on this concrete slab for about a day. And what you're doing is letting the oils come to the surface of the plant. And they have this measurement device called a Brix test. And so what they do is they take a little bit of the plant and they squeeze it in this scope, and they can there's some measurement in the scope that they're looking for to get the ultimate chemical components out of the oil when they distill it at that particular time. And then they do it at the lowest temperature possible, and they distill lavender for an hour and a half. And so I got to what do you call it? I had to go. I went under the distiller after it was done, and I put 2.5 gallons of lavender oil in a big bucket. So I got to drain the lavender oil off from underneath, and man, was that a smell. I mean, I detoxed for 24 hours because it was intense. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't put any on me either. I didn't need to. Just the smell did that, So so that's what I love about Young Living, is that they have a seed to seal process, and they're in control of the soil, the seed, the harvesting, the distillation process, and the packaging. And so most companies can't say they do that. So we say we're the growers, not the brokers. And yeah, because most other companies, they're brokers. And so
interesting term.
Yeah. And so that's why I've been studying with Gary Young since 1996. And so I would say he totally and utter. I mean, I feel like what he does is he teaches you to be your own doctor. And I have really watched lots of things happen with my clients. Early on, one of my clients had a rotten gum bone, and he started brushing his teeth with the thieves oil, which has got clove and cinnamon in it. And it's in the toothpaste now, but he was just brushing. They didn't have that. So he just brushed his teeth with thieves, and it rebuilt his rotten gum bone. And thieves is amazing. It'll tighten your gums. It'll melt plaque. It'll keep you from getting any of those gum problems.
So you put one drop on a toothbrush?
Huh? Yeah, well, you can put it on a toothbrush, yeah. So if you have particular teeth issues or gum issues, I would get Young Living's toothpaste and put extra thieves oil on it. Now, thieves oil, the reason the name is because during the Black Plague, the thieves in England were stealing from the dead and dying, and they weren't getting sick. And so when the king's men caught them, they said, well, if you give us your recipe, we'll let you go. And they were spice traders who were stuck in port, because of the plague. So they gave the king the recipe, and they posted it on everybody's door, and this is the recipe. So it's a very powerful antibiotic. And so I had early on, I had a client right between 97 and 98. She had MS diagnosed on the brain, and she couldn't remember what she was doing from one minute to the next. And I would watch her body heat up, and she would turn red, and she'd have muscle spasms and pain and all this stuff. So she decided she wanted to get the raindrop therapy treatment that I do once a week. And so this is dropping specific oils in a specific order along the spine points of the feet and also the spine. So first you use Valor, which is a blend. Although, because Young Living has exploded in growth in the last 4 or 5 years, they kind of had to, they were out of Valor a lot, and so they had to kind of figure out another oil. And I figured mine out, but they use tea tree oil, or Melaleuca, which is the same thing, instead of Valor in the raindrop kit. And I started using cedar wood myself, because for a while they couldn't figure out, they hadn't said particularly what they were going to replace it with, but I liked cedar wood because it has similar properties. It's very grounding, it's calming. Valor was also good for courage and self-esteem, but it also aligned the body's electrical field. I mean, I've had people where I just put Valor on their feet and they felt their spine straightened. So they call it was nicknamed chiropractor in a bottle. But I think of cedar wood as a tree is standing tall like a tree. So I guess in a way that's kind of how I used it. So you use that oil first, then you use oregano and thyme, which draw out viruses that hide along the spine. Then you use basil. Basil is good for muscle spasms and relaxing muscles. And then you use wintergreen. Wintergreen actually repairs bone. Cypress is next, and that is good for blood circulation. Then you use marjoram, and marjoram is really good for nerve repair. Then you use peppermint. And peppermint's really good for digestion and muscle and nerve and tissue repair. Um, and then you weave all those in, you feather them in along the spine, and then you put on, it's called aromases at the very end, which helps cool it down a little bit. But you really smell like a pizza after you're done. And I've helped a lot of people that have had degenerative back problems doing the raindrop technique. And so with this person that came with MS, we did the raindrop technique once a week for 2.5 years, and all her symptoms went away. Brain function came back, her digestion came back, her pain and muscle spasms subsided. So I feel like what I watched was the myelin sheath. The myelin sheath that covers the nerves is what causes a lot of neurological problems. It's being deteriorates that covers the nerves, and so I feel like I watched the myelin sheath rebuild itself over the nerves. Why, I had that, but I had an intuitive medical shaman tell us that the MS is caused by parasites eating the myelin sheath off of the nerves. Which is kind of interesting because it starts with lesions on the brain. Well, what would cause lesions on the brain? I mean, it sort of makes sense to me that that's what it would be, so that you would you would do a detox from your parasites and start doing all this other stuff to repair, because, nerve damage, it takes depending on the extent that you have it, it's not that fun to repair. It can really be painful with nerve repair. And anyway, so I know I have more to tell, but I wanted you to see if you have any questions.
Well, no, you have a reservoir of. I mean, reading from your book, I realize that you have many areas like this where you have a huge experience and insight. So I'm more than happy to let you talk.
Okay. Well, okay, so we can talk about my book a little bit. So my book is called "It's Not Weird Anymore: An Extraordinary True Tale," and it's an oil story. So in 2007, January of 2007, I was on a I was on a Young Living essential oil cruise with a girlfriend of mine, and she and I had a great time the whole cruise. We were in the Caribbean. We went down to Central America, Honduras, and swam with dolphins. And we went tubing down rivers. And anyway, we just really had a blast. And the last day of the cruise, we were in Cozumel, Mexico, the island, and we rented scooters, and we went to there's a lot of real spiritual people that are in Young Living. And so this one woman, old woman, but we're always attracted to, vibrating at similar levels. And
slightly less young than yourself.
Yeah. And anyway, I mean, she's a kind of a well-known metaphysician, written lots of books. She built a pyramid for her son when he was 3 years old in the backyard. I mean, she's really into vortexes, and she knows how to use them. I mean, even when she goes to Stonehenge, she's actually followed. And they start trying to stop her from doing anything at Stonehenge. I mean, that's how, who she is. Anyway, her name is Mary Hardy, and she told us that morning before we were going to go rent scooters, she said, here's the Holy Grail vortex activation. You guys can do it at the ruins, because if you do it at PowerPoints, it's really powerful. And what she said it does is, if you're familiar with HAARP and the antenna system around the planet that actually controls the weather and also controls people to stay asleep too. Yes. She said if you do the Holy Grail vortex activation at these PowerPoints, at these ruins in particular, it actually neutralizes that antenna system.
Hmm.
So Julie and I are like, oh yeah, we're going to do that, you know. And so we rent scooters, but we realized when we got there, we had slept in a little bit. We didn't get started in time to be able to take a ferry off the island and go to Tulum, these ruins in Tulum. We did not have time to do that. And those cruise ship does not wait for you. If you're not there, it leaves. So, so we realized we couldn't do that. So we decided we were going to project ourselves to Tulum and do the ritual.
Oh, yes, I remember now. Yes.
Huh?
I remember reading this. Yes, of course. Go on.
Oh, okay. All right. So we went to the beach and did the ritual and projected ourselves to Tulum, and then we went snorkeling a little bit, and there was nothing down there. Gosh, it was really bad. I mean, where we were, there wasn't anything to look at.
Oh, okay.
And so then we got on our scooters to go back to the ship, and we were just gonna spend the night and go to or they were probably gonna leave that afternoon or late afternoon. They were gonna leave and go back to Galveston so we could go home. Well, on the way back on our scooters, I went through some kind of vortex because I noticed that picking out my helmet, I was very, very particular and cautious because I kind of have a pinhead, and I, wanted to make sure that I had a helmet that really stayed on. It didn't have a face shield. And I was following Julie on her scooter, and all we were doing was going around a slow left turn. It was a new road, no rocks, no traffic or anything. And my scooter just went straight, and it was in the air because it was going into a ditch. And I went over the handlebars at 25 miles an hour and plowed my face into a coral rock. And so I thought that I had, hit it and went, said something, said an expletive, and then stood up and hear myself go, oh, well, you're going to start bleeding and you're probably going to have a headache. And so I thought that I stood up and walked out of the ditch, and the only people that were right there in the middle of nowhere on this island was an American doctor, and Julie had turned around and she had seen it in her rear view mirror a split second before it happened, because you're psychic and you're tuned in or whatever. And so the American doctor pulled over, and Julie and I had these big giant beach towels from this ship. And so he had her take those out and soak up the blood. And in the meantime, the ambulance was like right there. So I didn't wait. I know that if I really just was off the side of the road and that happened, I just would have bled out, but because they were there. And that's why it's called It's Not Weird Anymore, is it really was a planned event.
Yes, that's strange. It's quite curious. And
well, I found out from my old boyfriend, Michael, who channels the Galactic Masters. Now, this wasn't in the book, but because I didn't have that knowledge then, but I did have knowledge about other stuff. Anyway, that my galactic twin flame cushioned my fall by 70% because nothing happened to my neck. I thought that I had lost my front teeth because I broke my upper palate in half and there was a big gap there. I thought my teeth fell out, and it felt like I shoved the rest of them up into the roof of my mouth. That's what it felt like. Ugh, I know. And my nose was ripped from all the way up to my eye, all the way down, all the way through my lip. So my nose was really half off. I broke my orbital bone, all my cheekbones, and my upper palate in half. And so it's a miracle I didn't lose any teeth. I'm still actually working on my teeth right now. I did have to have braces again, but I still have some chipped teeth in the front, and I have a couple broken teeth in the back that I'm actually getting worked on right now. So I'm still paying for that cruise, and it was 10 years ago. Wow. But anyway, it could have been way worse. I didn't have brain damage. I didn't lose my right eye. I didn't lose any teeth. And nothing happened to my neck. I mean, that is amazing. So my face took the brunt of it. And so what Michael told me through my other half from my ship was that the other thing was, we volunteer to do stuff unconsciously all the time when we go up to the councils at night. So they didn't understand how artificial body parts were going to actually transmute or transform with the ascension process, like raising in frequency. How is the artificial body parts going to work? So I unconsciously volunteered to put some in me to help that.
Wow.
Anyway, plus, you're never given more than you can handle. Because I chose not to suffer over it.
That's remarkable. Yeah.
Julie and I had done a lot of personal work on myself too. And Julie and I, when we got in the ambulance, we silently just started doing Tibetan chants. Now, she and I didn't consciously say anything. We just automatically did it to keep the energy from being, all discombobulated. So we started doing that, and I pretty much did that the whole time. I just chanted the Tibetan chants in my head. I really didn't look in the mirror for about 5 days because I didn't want to focus on what my face looked like initially. But we did start. She took pictures. She started taking pictures the second day, which we probably should have, if we really wanted. We should have taken it at first.
Proper documentation.
Way more intense. Because really, by the second day, she had kept putting the oils on me, and it really shrunk the swelling by 80% in 2 days. I never had a headache. So the first pictures of me, I really don't. The swelling is so far down. I don't look. Considering what happened, I don't look that bad. And I still hadn't had. I had my nose sewn back on, but I didn't have all the other the 34 screws and 7 steel plates put in my face yet. And also my upper palate wasn't sewn back together yet. So that was going to happen later on after the first pictures, that night or something.
Yes.
So when they wheeled me out, they told you after they did it. So the first surgery for sewing my nose back on was like 2.5 hours. Julie started putting the oils on right away and kept the swelling down, which has made it easier for them to do the surgery for the screws and the plates. But when they wheeled me out after 6.5 hours, they said, be prepared. She's going to blow up 3 times the size. And I never did because Julie kept putting the oils on my face. And that's what I learned. The swelling is what does more damage, can make your face or whatever, body part it is, more distorted is the swelling. And because we kept the swelling down, I don't look as, my nose is a little different. I think when I get my teeth fixed in the front in particular, I might start looking a little more like myself, but I used to have more of a longer Native American nose because I have Native American in me. Oh. And so now I say I have more of a Mexican nose now, but anyway.
It's the impact of the vibration of the coral on the nose.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, I remember somehow I got information. That hospital said that I was the most messed up person they'd ever had in that hospital. And initially when they were putting me through the x-rays, they kept telling my friend Julie that not everybody makes it because they have 30 to 40 of those scooter accidents a month.
What?
Yep, and they have a lot of deaths in that. So for me, I definitely understand that I was my fall was cushioned because I probably if it wasn't a protected event, I wouldn't be sitting here. Wow. So anyway, the book is really fun. It's not depressing. I really didn't get slowed down a whole lot. I mean, I actually started giving massages when I got back from Mexico.
I read 6 weeks later.
The extent I was doing it, but I mean, I still did some. My energy I was building my energy back up, and it really, I would say, slowed me down for about 6 months, and I was back on track. And so I even within those 6 months, So I had a new boyfriend from Matchbox.com 3 weeks before I crashed. He flew down to Mexico, and I had him enrolled in an essential oil class right while I was gone. But the first day that I crashed, that first day that he was taking the class is when I crashed, and I told him to stay and take the other 2 days so that he knew how to treat me, because Julie was with me, and they traded flights. Like, she flew out on the plane he flew in on. And so I was never without anybody. And in Mexico, they had a bed next to me. So, I wasn't without anybody. And, that would never happen in the United States, that you can sleep on a chair, not another bed,
I see.
So, yeah, so that was pretty nice. And anyway, so I just used the oils. I mean, I did feel like I had a mask on my face for a while, and but I kept using frankincense, lavender, juniper repairs nerves. Lavenders and frankincense are really good for the skin, but they also repair tissue damage, and they work on the nerves as well, but juniper in particular. I used helichrysum. Helichrysum was kind of hard to get, and that's kind of an overall healer. It's really powerful. And anyway, I kind of switched it up a little bit, and then Copaiba is the best anti-inflammatory. And so I actually did, I did all these other kinds of treatments, but I always with the oil. So I did acupuncture once a week. I did lymphatic drainage. I did chiropractic. I did cranial sacral. I did this thing called the biofeedback. It's a SCIO machine, or quantum biofeedback machine, that actually had my signal in Mexico, because the machine had worked on me before I went, and they had my signal. They used that machine to work on the astronauts when they were in space. So it had my signal when I was in Mexico and was working on me then. And it also kind of monitors what's going on with you. So I was able to, see what was going on, because I did learn that, when you have an accident or a traumatic event, a lot of people are so stressed out from that they end up getting other problems. Or, if a really close loved one died that they were really attached to, and they just got so stressed out that a lot of times they end up manifesting cancer. But also, when you have an accident in your body and you've got all this scar tissue, it can cause other kinds of problems, physical problems in your body. And so I was able to really counter any of that. So I don't really have head injury symptoms that most people would have.
Yeah.
I just have some teeth I need to fix right now, which I feel very fortunate. That. And so, I'm in the book. I'm introducing people to all these different modalities, but I didn't want to bog the story down with each one. So I have a really comprehensive resource section for that, because the story is really got a few themes going on. One is how you choose to think about your choices and circumstances, make them worse or better. Mm-hmm. And also, I really had, because I felt like I was choosing not to suffer over what was and just going, well, what's next? I really had a magical kind of flow life experience where I ended up within those first 6 months, I was with my new boyfriend. We went to California, to the hot springs, and we took some intimate workshops, and then we went to Hawaii, and then we went to Italy. And so within 6 months of me having that accident, I did all those things. And so, and the middle of the book is us in Italy at the Damanhur intentional community. That's actually quite a magical place. I mean, that is incredible. These underground temples and just what happens there and what they do. I mean, it's quite amazing. So they also have in Damanhur, they have they hook up plants to synthesizers and they play concerts, trees and bushes and house plants. It's very interesting.
Yes.
And so there's lots of really fun things in the story.
Well, you're one of these people that can dip into different traditions and modalities of healing and give a very, very good summary and insight into these things to people that maybe haven't encountered them before. I was struck in your book by how you can do that. And the book is actually full of all kinds of doorways into understanding different approaches to, as well as the Dharmanur and the oils. There's many, many, many things in there. So it's a very, and in a sense, you're kind of an example of a new kind of liberated female on this planet, because you're very humble, but you also have an enormous capacity to digest and get perspective on different experiences. So
well, I know that when I my motto being here on planet Earth is, I will not be bored.
That's the 11th commandment. Swami Beyondananda says that's right, the 11th commandment.
Thou shalt not be bored.
Thou shalt not bore God.
Oh, well, that's a good one too. Because, Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of Egypt, has been a teacher of mine, one of the major teachers of mine. And that's definitely, because the whole story is only a year and a quarter of my life, but I definitely had to go and do some time travel because of certain characters that I was building. And there's an Egyptian theme throughout the whole story, and I had no idea, actually, throughout my whole life, and I really didn't know that until I wrote this. And so there is a book, I forget, the guy, I think it was Gene Houston's husband, he's really into Sekhmet, and he wrote something like I forgot how many names of Sekhmet. Like there's like 4,000 names of Sekhmet or something like that. And he wrote about them in this book, and I can't remember what the name of the book is, but the one that really sticks with me is She Whose Opportunity Escapeth Her Not. That's one of Sekhmet's names. And so I really enjoy that. I love that.
That's very nice.
And so we are, I have been working on...
I can see how that relates to you.
Oh, okay. So, I am working with this company for the book to be in a movie, because it would really make a nice movie or a good movie, because of a lot of the crap that they have is the same formula. It bores me. It's boring. Me. And my editor even said, you didn't follow the formula. I said, well, this is what happened. The heck with the formula, I mean, can't we move past that?
Very good. Very good. It's my sentiment.
I mean, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, but there's the whole thing about having to be the protagonist. There has to be somebody that's an irritant or whatever, or there has to be a major problem. See, because, it could have been in the very beginning, if I was really choosing to mentally suffer over my accident, that's what would have been more normal as a formula. And because I didn't do that, the editor had a hard time thinking it was true, or was real. How would I even write it if it wasn't?
People like the negative, don't they?
That's what the formula is.
Yeah. A young son of an ex-student of mine is making a documentary about me at the moment, and his supervisors told him that they're making. He said, "You can't just write positive things about this guy." He disagreed. He said, "No, this man stands for joy, and he doesn't really have anything that one would want to bring out that contradicts that." So I thought it was very nice.
Right. So what? Yeah. See, it's like, okay, you always have to have. Maybe that's part of it, is that because this planet has been about duality, and maybe you and I aren't living in that. I don't know.
No, we're yeah. because that's how the entrapment happens. You become subject to the polarity of this superficial positive versus the superficial negative, and you get bounced back and forward between the two rather than going for the great happiness.
Right, no matter what is going on. You know, you can choose to suffer or not.
Yeah.
Or choose to be happy or not. You know.
For myself, and when I talk to other people about them, because some of my friends and students are taking an interest, is because there are so many ways in which we can use the oils in our lives. It's sometimes easy to forget about them or not discover them, and like simply putting a drop on one's pillow or in the wardrobe or in the washing machine.
Right, exactly. Like I use lemon oil. Lemon oil always gets got gum out of my furry jacket.
Really?
You know, stuff like that. Or, you know, one of the things I like to use lemon oil for is, you know, when you buy glass and it's got one of those stickers on it, you can't get the glue off.
Oh, yes.
Lemon oil takes it right off.
Do you dilute it with the...
Oh, you just put a drop on there and just take it on. And and I even did it with these plumbers came to the house to fix the sink, and they actually got some of their plumber glue in the carpet, and I got it out with lemon oil.
Whoa.
It's powerful. But it's also a good for your liver, good for digestion and balancing your pH. The lemon oil is.
Yeah, lemon. Wow.
So there's that. Let's see.
I put a drop of it in my salad dressing.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, you can. You can actually make food with them, but it's just that when you do, you don't want to. When you're boiling something or whatever, you don't want to put the oil in when you're doing that because you'll ruin the medicinal quality of it. So when it's cooled down enough, you just add a little bit there. And sometimes if it's too, to make it, depending on the size of whatever it is you're making, you may only need to dip a toothpick in the bottle and swirl it around and then swirl that around in the food because it's pretty strong. One drop.
Yes.
Young Living's peppermint oil is equivalent to 28 drops of, 28 cups of peppermint tea.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I use that too. It's a very great tip. Thank you.
So when people say they're expensive, compared to what? Really?
Well, if people want the best things, then they have to somehow sponsor the trouble that goes into making them the best. I guess it's
right. Yeah, I know. So that's what's really nice about it.
I reckon the two discoveries that are equivalent on the positive end of the scale to the nuclear bomb are the biodynamic agricultural preparations that Rudolf Steiner instigated that can turn a square meter of soil into absolutely teeming with billions of microorganisms in a very short space of time, and the Young Living oils. So those two entities, if you like, they seem to have, to me, as far as I can see, the most to offer, the vibrance and the health-giving qualities of the planet.
Right. So tell me about Rudolf. I've read some of his stuff, but I haven't heard this piece that you're telling me.
Well, it's in a book called The Secrets of the Soil by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird and Paul Hawken, three authors. And it's a book dedicated to all the innovations that have gone into transforming how we use the soil for all the things we use it for. And there's a chapter on Steiner's. There are 8 of them. There's special kind of preparations. I won't go into the details of it, but they involve using plants and the right time of the year in the preparation.
Well, that's what Young Living does. They make sure that they do it at the right time of the year. And
this is astrology as well as the weather.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, and he doesn't, I find out some more esoteric stuff that he does.
Okay.
That he won't really divulge.
Should we put this in a video? Is it okay?
Yeah, because your audience will They're fine with it.
Okay.
What I mean is he doesn't divulge it because he's appealing to a lot of mainstream doctors and stuff, so he tries not to appear very woo-woo to them.
Right, right.
But one time, this was years ago, his peppermint was being eaten by some bug. And I think somebody in the field said, Gary, look at this. And Gary was scrambling like crazy to try to figure out how to save his peppermint field. So he got a hold of this guy that does crystal grid work.
Oh.
And he got that guy to put the crystal grids around his farms, and he doesn't have any bugs at all. And even he was even getting calls from local farmers that said, Gary, what are you doing? We don't have any bugs. Now that was years ago, and I would never hear that on stage, you know.
No. No, you have to be careful who you tell, what you tell to who.
But I know that he also made and this isn't for sale, but he did make an essential oil natural fumigation thing for his plants too.
Oh.
He did do that. But, it's not for sale because he doesn't have enough to sell. He just uses it for himself. Because he used to get, early on when he was starting out, he would go to these health or oil festivals or health fairs or something like that. Yeah. And he said, this woman came up to him and said, Gary, I want to buy your oils because I can cut it into blah, blah, blah and make a ton of money. And he's like, are you kidding me? That's not what it's for, No way are you going to do that, But that was what people were doing. They get a little bit and then
That's
they would...
That's the profit mindset. How do we extract more for less? That's the thing, isn't it? Not how do we serve people. It's a simple equation in a way.
Right. And I mean, whatever, there's a ton of money that's being made, they fake it too. There's a ton of fake essential oils. There's fake olive oil. I'm really hoping I'm really worried about the coconut oil. Kind of, there's fake honey. I mean,
yes.
And so, I know there was one time, when people were talking about the fake oil, is that there was a statistic one year. I mean, it could be going on, but there was 100 times more lavender oil coming out of France than they actually produced.
I understand what you're saying. So someone somewhere is
right.
So, there's a bad joke about the Irish. Do you know what they do when there's a water shortage? They dilute the water.
With what?
Obviously not water, right?
Yeah, I know.
Something else. So I understand what you're saying. I mean, that's a longer discussion about something else I want to have with you at some point. But to me, it seems Young Living is totally the real thing. The way they talk about what they do, and of course, there's no legislation. There's legislation. You can't say something is fruit juice if it has anything added to it. You even have to say it's been diluted from concentrated juice. But there's no legislation for about what you write on the bottle for essential oils. It probably never will be.
Well, yeah, I don't know, because the FDA really came down on natural products, especially in the last couple of years. There was a point where the FDA, and it still might be happening, but they would go to the Young Living conventions, and they were basically telling people, we couldn't even tell them testimonials. I mean, there was that going on, and the stuff that so there is a way we're supposed to share it, but then when I went to the convention last summer, Gary said that he's teamed up with these scientific labs around the world, and because it's scientific research that they have, it's hard for the FDA to gag them because of that. So it's like they're having permission to, um, with their scientific papers, especially when they're hooked up with these labs around the world. We're not as gagged as we were at one point. I mean, there was a point where, I don't know if it's happened more recently because I haven't needed to buy the essential oil desk reference, but I remember in 2009, you couldn't get his desk reference at the bookstore that sell that, because there's lots of vendors that come to the convention, and two vendors in particular are publishers, and his publisher has all these books and everything, and you go in there and you'd ask for the desk reference and they would whisper to you. You could get it on Amazon.
Yeah, I managed to get...
He could sell his book in the convention, at the convention. And that was a while ago. That was so bizarre to me.
You can get the big book and the small one, if that's what you're referring to, through Life Sciences. But it's very...
Oh, right.
For someone in the UK, it's very hard.
Life Science was there, and they were to tell us, you have to go get it on Amazon at the convention, because the FDA was at the convention, and somehow, they've made it so that, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I got the small one and the big one, but they were very hard to get hold of. I eventually got them from the website in America.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
From the publisher website.
My mom told me that an article or she watched on the news, that the hospitals are losing money because people are refusing their horrible treatments for cancer and stuff. And I say, yeah, why would you, if you had that cancer pretty bad, why would you choose to have their horrible treatments that are going to kill you anyway and make you feel horrible?
It's difficult because they're never going to tell you the stats on that.
Well, there is the truth about cancer. The videos online people can watch, and there's more
of Ty Bollinger. Yeah,
there's more and more articles saying that doctors purposely misdiagnosed people and told them they had cancer when they didn't. Yeah.
I tend to avoid doctors altogether because I've had several times in my life when I thought I had something really serious, and I somehow managed to deal with it some other way, or to do with some spiritual way, or through a Feldenkrais or something like that.
Right, I know what you mean, because when I came back from Mexico, I mean, I had to be in the hospital. But what I was really not wanting was a blood transfusion, and I was lucky I did not have to have that. And so they, I needed what they did. Now they would come in the room and ask me, "Are you in pain?" And I never was. I mean, I never even had a headache, and they would always come in to see if they needed to give me any pain medicine. I say no, because I don't have any pain. Now, when I was leaving the hospital, they gave me, because they had me hooked up to an IV for food, because I really couldn't eat anything most of the time because my mouth was so messed up. So they gave me a bunch of pills, painkillers and this and that. And I took them, and I went to the hotel room, and I laid them out over the bed, and I just went, I don't need these. So I didn't take them.
You do, yeah.
Yeah. My cat is bugging me.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, so it was just, to me, I just did it the natural way, and I did have a little more surgery 2.5 years later, where they took the crushed bone. I had crushed bone at the top of my nose because the ear, nose, eye, and throat doctor was the one that did my nose, not the regular plastic surgeon. And so when I was here in Seattle, I mean, when I was in Seattle, I'm in Roanoke, Virginia right now, but when I
Sure.
lived in Seattle
Yeah.
at the time, that surgeon, he goes, you had better surgery in Mexico than you ever would have here, because I was supposed to have a part going this direction too. Because when my friend Julie asked the doctor, the surgeon, how he was going to do it, he said, well, I cut a thing in the top of her scalp and I pull her face down, and I put all that stuff in, and she's going, oh my God, you cannot do that to her. And he's looking at her like, well, that's not a normal procedure. And I know it is too, because I've watched plastic surgery on TV.
Mm.
And so she just started chanting and focusing that he did not have to do that.
Yeah.
And he didn't. He wheeled me out and he said, okay, I didn't do that to her. He said, he went in here and under here and put plates and the screws in. I don't know how, it was divine intervention. Definitely the Galactics.
Yes. Well, you're one of these people that
I heard the Galactics speaking to me after this, when I was coming off the anesthesia, and I could feel them adjusting me when I was coming off the anesthesia. And so I really could. It was very interesting. And so anyway, so the surgeon in Seattle was he kept looking for this part, and he couldn't believe it. He just said, you had way better plastic surgery in Mexico than you ever would have here.
Whoa.
And he was blown away by the job they did. He said, I try to teach it that way, but they don't usually get it. And so what he did was he took the crushed bone, he re-broke my nose and straightened out my septum, and there was some scar tissue on this side, so he cleared that out, took 9 screws and 2 plates out around my right eye and reattached my cheek here. And, I did the same procedure. The black and blue went away within 4 days, and, I never had a headache. I even, within 2 weeks, I flew to Minneapolis for the Young Living Convention there. I know. So
it's a central part of your book, and not central, but you open the book with the story, and I don't know, I shouldn't be putting ideas in your head, but I expect the film, that would be a central part of the film somehow too.
Okay, I hope so. The treatment that these guys ended up coming up with. See, I, paid them to do the treatment because I felt like me doing it, I don't have the connections and all the other information that they have. So I let them do the treatment. So they, it's not exactly the same story. Actually, but here's the thing. What they were working on was sellable, marketable to a producer where there was not a high budget. So traveling to other countries is not in their budget, to go to Italy and pay their actors to stay there and do the other, that.
I see.
So what they did was they picked a spiritual retreat in Sedona, Arizona, and put the elements in it. But it isn't the story yet, but I am hopeful that a producer that actually gets their attention, that they actually read the book and decide to do more what the book says than just the treatment. So the treatment is to get your foot in the door, and they're also right now working on, through social media, helping me become a bestseller, because that's a better selling point to the producer too. So, those are in the works right now. And so what I'm just hopeful that, that the producer wants to be more like what the book actually says.
I see.
But it still would make a good movie. And then people would read the book.
Well, that would be certainly a very good thing.
So
I can see that that's central for you. But even if the film is a little bit, not quite what you would want, maybe. Yeah,
it wasn't. It had the budget part in there and this and that.
Yeah,
but we'll see, because there's timing. This year, 2017, is going to be very interesting, and I really am. I'm feeling like it's really more for we the people, because I think the beings who've been suppressing us for, I guess, the 13 millennia, they are really coming down, falling down. and the light is really taking over, and I'm just really kind of excited about this year coming up.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Well, should we end the formal interview at that point? Because
Okay.
because this is going to go right off the
Oh,
chart.
I see what you mean. Right, right. Okay, well, I can just say again, go to my website, lauralegere.com, Laura.
You have to go twice now.
Okay.
You have to go twice.
LauraLegere.com.
Sure.
LAURA LEGERE.com. And check out my website and my blog and my YouTube channel and my book. And if you want to learn more about the oils, you can get on my little newsletter too. And what else? Well, I do have a website, itsnotweirdanymore.com. There's that too, that focuses more on the book than the oils, but it still has a lot of good oil stuff on it. And what else? Well, that's all I can say for now, but thank you so much, Lawrence, for having me on.
Pleasure. Very, very nice to hear your the trajectory through all these impressions.
Yeah, and we can talk about all the other stuff that I'm involved in later on some other interviews too.
Sure, of course, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.